Hey, welcome guys. All right, we are today building the Tamiya Crusader. Now, this is, as I mentioned in my review of this, I have built a couple of these Tamiya kits, and this is pretty much, I guess, what I expected. Beginning with the Chrissy suspension here, which looks cool, is fun to put on, ends up getting hidden, but it's a little warped, as you can see, kind of having to attach the bottom, give it 20 seconds to dry, and then attach the top, kind of thing. Um, some of these quirks. Now I'm excited for everyone to see what kind of shape the gun barrel was in, and actually how it came out. But that's much later in the video. But um, a lot of these quirks are things that we can work through. So nothing crazy, but again, as I stated in that review, it's not a 2024 Tamiya kit. Um, I know someone mentioned in those comments, the border kit is superior. It's more expensive, but I did take a look at it. It does look nice. But if you're looking for, definitely a much easier build, um, this was a really good kit. So once we have the suspension lined up, and I won't bore you with road wheels, but one of my least favorite things is on the sprocket. If they can find another way to mold that, you're always shaving down, one of the nubs, or in this case, it was four of them on each sprocket. So it's never a detail I've ever noticed, but it's something that I can never get perfect. The road wheels were a little bit difficult to sand. Now, part of that again might be a little bit of warping going on. I don't know how old my kit was in particular. Like I said, it's been sold out everywhere. I got it from Centerline Hobbies, and always shout out to them. I believe it was part of the stash that he bought, basically. Like 1,000 models or something from private collector. So this particular kit could have been, at least a couple years old. But I don't know. You couldn't really sand both road wheels at once. You kind of had to go one and then to the other because of they were slightly uneven. But I won't bore you with the sanding of those. But there was a good amount of work put into those road wheels. Probably like a good 45 minutes of sanding. And then yeah, you can see that sprocket was really tight. For some reason, the other one went together perfectly. That one was very tight. There are some nice little, caps to the road wheels here. Definitely a little bit delicate to put on. And just make sure, I had to keep checking like I did there, that you're going to put them on the right side. There is a slight difference in the wheels, but nothing crazy. So there you can kind of see I needed to clothespin the wheels and let them dry for 10 seconds or so, and kind of had to keep going back and forth and checking them to make sure that they were cemented together. Now, once you put the side skirts on and the tracks and everything, the wheels and the tracks and everything in the lower hull is kind of the least of your worries in this kit, because a lot of it gets hidden. But here you can see I was going back and forth between seeing if it was better to sand one side or both sides, and I think the best advice I can give is use a really strong grit and get them even. You can see some flash in the rear grille there. Again, nothing that once you put this on, put the kit together. I was in the mood for a rubber band track kit, and I didn't clean up everything. And then these are some fun parts to put on. There are some really tiny parts in this kit. there was on this rear panel and on the antenna as well. There were some very large pushpin marks inside there where I'm filling with the Tamiya putty. Like I said, same on the antenna. I don't have a tool that would allow me to get in there and remove that pushpin mark, so I filled it with putty, got it, thin enough where I would kind of pull up and self-level in there, and I just filled it. I don't, I didn't want to spend a ton of time on the kit. I didn't have another way of doing it, so that's a little bit of a hack. Once it's painted up, which you'll see in the next video, you can't even notice. I don't think I did as good of a job in the antenna, but if you take your time with it, it's pretty easy. So this is a good difference between a new age kit and this. Putting those little clips on there. There's nowhere for them to sit, so they kind of fasten to that piece, but you do have to glue them in place. And of course, I glued them in the wrong direction, had to change them. So pay attention to that. But you could also just attach them all at the end so that they are going in a gravitational direction. But there you can see that putty's thinned out. It's hardened enough. I didn't give it all day to dry, but um, in the case of this kit, we're just going for good enough. Plus, once the fuel tank goes over there, you're not really looking at that spot. And I did order MiG, Ammo by MiG makes 3 different putties. I believe they're getting here Friday, which doesn't mean anything because this video is going to post about a week from now, but I'm very excited about those. They come in different viscosities. So Tamiya putty is tried and true. It's great, but it's a little bit sloppy. I was actually very impressed that I didn't make a complete mess filling those. But I think we can do some more delicate filling in the future with those MiG putties, so excited about that. And we're just going to finish up. There are, like I said before, there are a good amount of small parts in this kit. The I believe it's the A sprue. For a kit that only has 3 sprues, and I will say this is a decent knock against this kit. As annoying as it is to look through 7 sprues and try to find the D or the E or whatever, this kit had like 2 regular size sprues and then 1 just mega sprue. And it made it very difficult to find anything on, again, I believe it was the A sprue, but I'm glad they don't do that anymore. The whole sprue is the size of the box, which is pretty rare to get a sprue that big anymore. But there were like 120 pieces on that one sprue, so, and they weren't really in any kind of order. So these little pieces here, these are tricky to fit on, mostly because the idler and the sprocket have to go in there. So what I was able to kind of figure out halfway through was glue them on, let them sit for like 10 seconds, pop the sprocket in there, put a little bit more glue on it, and like hold it in place as you just gently pull the sprocket out. That way it's in the exact right position. Otherwise, you'll never be able to get the sprocket in there. And we did have a couple of these, I forget exactly how I referred to it last time, but kind of in the air assemblies. Good news is they went together pretty well. You'll see some slight gaps and things, but nothing that the extra thin doesn't really help us take care of. this piece was, I really wasn't sure about this piece, but again, it's kind of one of those kits that individual pieces you think might not fit that great, and to be honest, they don't all fit that great. But once you get everything on it at the end, which you'll see in 10 or 15 minutes here, it does really come together and end up looking good. But there are a couple questionable moments. These boxes, for one, are a little bit difficult to line up. If you push them to the side of the side skirt all the way in like I did, there's a couple different options you have. I think the good news is it doesn't really matter. Again, a modern kit would have an exact space for it, an outline for it. It would lock in somewhere. These don't. So my advice is just take it as it is. You don't need to make this one perfect. I kind of went with an unusual camo scheme, one I haven't really seen before in this vehicle. So in the event that it didn't turn out well, I just wanted to build this kit, right? Getting rid of some flash with the old paint covered fingernail there. And then this is a good trick for smaller parts. You saw me earlier using extra thin cement on one of the nubs, which is also a good trick. It doesn't do a perfect job, the extra thin cement, but because it melts the plastic, it will kind of melt some of those nubs off and smooth it out. Now, what I was doing there is I glued the grab handle on, and I waited. You have to wait a good while. 10 minutes is probably not long enough, maybe 20 or 30. And then once it's hardened on there, then you can sand it. It's a lot easier than holding it in your hands. So now we're just going to glue the top hole in, and I differed from the directions here, mainly because I wanted to paint the tracks separately. I know plenty of you easily could, because the tracks, to be honest, are a little bit big. You could paint them on the vehicle. It's habit. So I was able to fit them on afterwards. It's not a huge deal. I had the vehicle completely assembled, and was able to feed the tracks back into it and glue them and everything. So that is an option. Now, I did have a little bit of some fit issues with this front plate. See, I had to rip the pieces that kind of secure it to the lower plate. I had to rip those off because it was just a little tough to align them. What I figured out in the end is attach those headlights, the guards for the headlights, sorry. And if those are in the right place, you can kind of dry fit them, then those two pieces of front hull are in the right place. And then this is kind of I don't know. I don't think they needed this detail. This was something I feel could have easily been molded on. If you've been watching this channel, you know how I feel about these kind of parts. But use a little bit of extra thin on the plastic, and you can more or less just drop the tiny piece right onto it. It's not the cleanest method. You do get a little bit of glue coming out the sides, but I don't know. You could get a paper clip, bend it straight, and put the tiniest dab of glue in there if you wanted. This is just, again, how I did it here. I didn't care if there was a little bit of extra glue. On the fuel tank, it is definitely easier. I dry fitted this a bunch of times. It's definitely easier to build the bottom half put the sides of it on and then attach the top. I would advise doing it kind of while it's drying, which I do with a lot of parts anyways, just in case you have to take something apart or kind of move something around. On a better fitting kit, I would take a little bit more time. On an older kit with some more parts and stuff, I find this method to actually be, even though it's a little sloppy at times, I find it to be kind of necessary so that you know where things fit, right? And you know that you have like a couple minutes to kind of work things into, maybe not a couple minutes, maybe 30 seconds, but you have enough time to kind of work things into shape. And if you have to secure one end and then let that glue harden and then secure the other, you can do that. It just gives you a little bit of flexibility. So here's that front panel. I put that off for a little bit because it was frustrating me. But as you can see, I sanded that back, the bottom of that front plate. I sanded it too much. That was a mistake because I was having that fit issue. And this is when I figured out that if you attach the lights, you're golden. Or the light guards, whatever. That's how you know that the fit is correct. Now I just put a little bit of Tamiya putty on that gap in the bottom. You would never know it's there. I think I covered up a couple rivets, but again, it's the bottom of the tank. Not my biggest worry. And then again, this was interesting. These bottoms of the rear fender that attach to the main body here, I could not get these to align perfectly. This was another case of it's good enough. And you'll kind of see when I zoom in here, it just wasn't, I guess I could have sanded it down a little bit more, but it just wasn't going to fit absolutely perfect. Again, this is a case of good enough. After building this kit, if you wanted to make the best possible Crusader, you were going to put it in a diorama, you were going to put it in an exhibit or sell it or whatever, I would probably go with that border kit. It looks much cleaner, much more extensive. It is obviously modern and new. If you want just a cheaper, fun rubber band track kit, this kit does fit the bill. Even with the little quirks and kind of fit issues it has, it still all goes together in the end. And part of those issues, I built this in one go. I think I stayed up a little bit, probably too late. Hence some of the user error, but this is a fun, relatively quick build. And for a rubber band track quick build kind of kit, again, it does have enough small parts to, it wasn't like I built it in 2 hours. Probably 6, 7, if I had to guess. It was a couple weeks ago now, but between sanding and drying time. So you see these are pieces 648 and 649. I believe it's like the exhaust coming out there. Those pieces, as you could see above, were completely warped. And so you had to kind of let them, I attached the part that would be closer to the turret. I attached that first, way before I kind of dry fitted some of these parts and started to figure out that, hey, a decent amount of these parts are warped. But I went ahead of the directions. I attached those just to the part, again, that's closer to the hull. And I let them kind of, float in midair there. And said, hey, in 20 minutes when they're hardened, let's settle the fuel tank and we'll come back. The fuel tank there, again, this is one of those pieces that there are no marks or anything. Couldn't get the thing to line up perfect, is what it is. But here we go. This just took some good old-fashioned get some glue in there and hold it for a minute, but it worked, and it worked completely fine. So again, you might look at it at first and say this isn't gonna fit at all, but it does. You just have to kind of work for it a little bit. Same with this piece. This was another on the, I believe it's the left side skirt. It's only on one side that you have that little railing. You have to glue it, on the front, hold it for like 10-15 seconds, glue the middle, hold that, and then wait another 20-30 seconds and then glue the back, in order to get it. Again, maybe it was just my kit. I've seen Andy from Andy's Hobby Headquarters build this kit, and many others that seemed to have maybe a better time than I did. Maybe they just got a fresher mold, I don't know. But I had to keep kind of going, especially with these longer parts. I had to keep going in stages. So I believe the fun part is coming up. Nope, not yet. Now we're going to attach the side skirts. So in the spirit of what we were just saying, this was another one where, see, I push one side, the other side pops out, push the other, the first side pops out. So I had to glue that piece there, and I had to let that set up for a decent while. And again, slightly sloppy to do it this way, but I had to keep going back and forth. And I tried to glue it. This is over the span of, I think this particular clip was maybe like 8 minutes, to give you an idea of kind of gluing one piece, pinching it in, letting it set up for 30 seconds to a minute, and then kind of working to the back. But through that 8-minute span, if you have to adjust the front, you still have time with that extra thin. All right, here's the fun part. That was the shape of the gun barrel. I had already gone online and checked to see what I could get for metal gun barrels. Not because I wanted to order one. I wanted to do this out of the box. I was just a little bit worried that that wasn't going to come together. So in the spirit of this kit, once again, we're going to glue the kind of foundation of the gun barrel. I let that set up for a couple minutes so it was really together, and then just through these 3 clothespins and some glue on the outside of the gun, it worked. It worked really, really well, and I had probably less sanding on this gun barrel than I have on some modern kits. So very happy actually with the way that it went over. I think the only real trouble was the end of the gun barrel. Didn't line up exactly perfect, but you pop a cover on it and you would never even know. So there you can see, I mean, there's a very minimal seam line. You just really had to sand away the glue. And it came out pretty perfect. The turret on this kit goes together pretty much perfectly. The only issues that you'll see fit-wise are going to be the doors are a little tight. Now, the kit is made for you to have them open. So this might be where some of that comes from. There is not technically an option in the directions for you to close them. So that is something to keep in mind. Now, there's no interior on this kit. The figures were actually really nice because they're newer Tamiya figures, but I didn't do them. I wanted a quick build, an easy build. So that could be where part of that comes from. So just keep that in mind. Yeah. So turret goes together. I kind of forget where I left off. I have to do this in snippets, but the turret is definitely where this kit has been more modernized. I know, again, there were multiple iterations of this kit from the 70s Tallery kit, but there's indications as we put on some smaller parts here. There's some good indications of where to put parts. There's parts that's, for these small parts in the turret, that things need to specifically fit into. So it's definitely a cleaner, more enjoyable build once you get to the turret. It doesn't necessarily match the lower half in terms of it almost feels like you're building a different model, right? It feels like this was maybe engineered in 2000 or something, or even 2010, something like that. But this is really the only issue I had. And again, I believe I said this before, the kit only has one option, which is for the hatches to be open. When I tried to close them, you'll see here, it's just a little tight. So, try to glue them in succession so that what I did is I had to sand down the door just a tiny bit, and then I lifted them both up and put them both down together, and that gave them like a perfect fit there. So that's really the only issue I had on the turret. And again, if you can call it an issue, I mean, this box was a little bit of one of those in the air assemblies, but once you get it, once you figure out where it needs to go, there you can see there's a small hole, but we're able to just put some extra thin in there and it kind of melts that hole shut. Yeah, you can see like a small gap in the part that goes next to the doors there. But then again, this is one of those parts where it feels like the kit actually was made in 2017. The turret, you have to push a little bit, but there, it clicks in and there's no seam. So turret's definitely engineered much better. I hate to say better, but it's much cleaner and just much more of a modern feel again, which is good because it's the top of the tank and it's the part that will get weathered probably the least. So we want it to look ideally the best, right? It's easier to hide things on the bottom. The closer you get to the ground of the vehicle than it is to on the top. And then something I mentioned about the Panzer IV that I ended up putting the antenna down, which I think was probably a good thing because I would just most likely break it. But I do very much enjoy that this kit comes with antennas. Are they in scale? From the pictures I've seen, no. And there's a nasty mark that we need to, we're going to fill that with Tamiya putty as well. But are the antennas to scale? No, probably not. Do I care? Absolutely not. So it works. They work. And it's just nice to see a kit that comes with that because personally, I don't put antennas on my tank kits. Really for the sole purpose that I don't like the way that they look because it has to be done, call it aftermarket, but with a guitar string or something like that, it just it just doesn't look right to me. And I think the kits look better, without it. So I also don't do rigging on airplanes because I absolutely would break that. But regardless, here's our finished tank. Um, it was not a struggle by any means, but it was a little interesting at times. But once everything's together, it really, really looks good. Now, I would not recommend this kit to a beginner. Um, if you want those recommendations, I have that video. But I would recommend it to someone that wants to build a Crusader that maybe doesn't want to spend the 50, 60, or $70 on the border version, which is the only other Crusader I've seen. If you can get your hands on it. If not, if you were going to put it in an exhibit or diorama, the border kit's probably obviously much better. Looks much more modern. But for a rubber band track kit, this was a fun kit, and we're going to have some more fun with it on the next video, where we get to painting and decals and things. If any of you have played the game Hell Let Loose, it's on PC and console. Uh, that is the paint job that I'm going to go with. I really, really like it in that game. It's not the Desert Rat camo that I've already seen done many times. So I'm very excited about that. Also slightly worried because I have nothing to go off, so I'm just choosing the color on by eye. And the paint job, there's only really so many references. So if you enjoyed this, if you have made it this far, please like and subscribe, and we'll continue to do these. But I will leave you with the finished product for about a minute here, and we'll see you when we get to painting and then eventually weathering. Thanks for watching.